Hello, everybody. It's Donna Cravata, and we are here again for one of our wisdom panels. And I'm very excited to bring this panel of incredible women to you today. The panel is about belonging to you, and I am going to do a quick introduction with everyone, and then we're just going to get into a conversation. If you are here live, put your questions and comments in, and we will bring them into the conversation. If you're watching on the replay, do the same and tag us, and we will come back and keep the conversation going. So first, I would like to introduce Nathalie Pincham. She is a visibility strategist and a coach for impact-focused female founders. She's a podcast host, and if you go back and watch the interview we did a few months ago, we went deep on visibility, and it was so much fun. Yvonne Marchese hosts the Late Bloomer Living podcast. She's an age and the Age Activators Club for Women. She's an author, speaker, photographer, and she has a strong focus on playing and wisdom skating, and we're going to talk more about that. Susanne Mueller is the most inspirational TEDx speaker, global executive coach, author, podcast host, and she's a Mountaineer and an Ironwoman. Laura Campbell is a catalyst, an author, speaker, coach, and a strategist for women. She beautifully combines the dual track of working in the C-suite and with individual women as their stories unfold. And Rachel Linnett is a transformational coach, a self-love mentor, an artist, and Rachel is the author of the forthcoming book, Droplets of Love, that combines her stories, her craft, and her journey of healing from trauma. Welcome today, and let's just get into this conversation. Let's start with a Brené Brown quote that I found this morning, and it just is so appropriate for this conversation. Brené says, belonging starts with self-acceptance. Your level of belonging, in fact, could never be greater than your level of self-acceptance, because believing that you are enough is what gives you the courage to be authentic, vulnerable, and imperfect. So let that kick off the conversation. Who wants to jump in?
I will jump in. Who says it better than Brené Brown? Really? but when I started the Late Bloomer Living podcast, it had a heavy focus on reinvention in midlife and beyond. And at some point, and it was very much about self-improvement, because that was the journey I was on. And I heard somebody say once, and unfortunately I cannot credit them because I don't remember their name, but they said reinvention isn't about changing yourself. It's about changing how you think about yourself. And that blew everything wide open for me. And I realized that this reinvention journey that I'm on is really about accepting myself, getting back to myself. And that has then blossomed into the idea of being playful about it at the same time, so that it's not so heavy with the idea of self-improvement and that something needs to be fixed.
I love that. I love everything you just said, Yvonne, but this idea of self-improvement, I lived for so many years, I think so many of us do, thinking, well, something's not right, and I just got to keep getting better and keep improving. And much as I love the self-development and the personal growth industry, I do think it feeds on that. It helps us, keep thinking, well, what's the next thing I've got to fix, And when we're in that headspace, it's so hard to accept ourselves and to, tap into our strengths.
I'd like to jump in on the back of Nathalie there, because really resonates with me what you just said, because for me, with the Brené Brown quote and listening to Yvonne and Nathalie, is that for me, having had a background with a very difficult childhood and experiencing trauma, I kept trying to fix myself for years, thinking just one more technique, or surely this healer, or surely this modality, and getting trained in more and more things. And it was just, it wasn't the answer. And when I met my spiritual teacher, Gongaji, back in 2010, that was when I really realized there is nothing to fix. That this person who I am, and is absolutely fine as she is, and accepting that this is a person who's had these experiences, and really focusing on the gifts that have come out of that was just so powerful. And accepting, yeah, this is me, and embracing it and loving, not just going, oh yeah, okay, that was, but really loving it, really meeting it, changed my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can only second that, what Nathalie, Yvonne, and Rachel said. I think that self-acceptance, as we get older, we can do that much better, because early on, I can only speak for myself, we try to fit into a box. And sometimes we're also pushed into a box. I am originally from Switzerland, and I feel like I was pushed into a box, and I felt like I'm stuck. And then when I came to New York, the whole world was opening up. I was working for the United Nations, and I was like, I went to the cafeteria there, and I was like, oh my God, the world is here. So I think now is the time. And also the self-acceptance is to create your own voice and be different. And yeah, not be that person that fits into a box. So we can all break out of that box.
I love it. Laura?
Oh no, I'm just listening and thinking about, like, two things are coming forward for me. One is how our healthy human brains are always defaulting to and looking for what's not working, what's not right, what's limiting, what gets in the way, what's not meeting our expectations, right? It's a daily practice to remind ourselves and to train the brain to actually look for all of the other things that are present, right? They're equally, if not more, present, but we just, we don't default to them. And part of it, and the second thing that's coming forward for me, is the power of words, the power of what we tell ourselves, both with our mouths, but also in our heads, and the things that we are taking in about ourselves from others. And so the importance of, who we surround ourselves with, and what we choose to put in our kind of our head and ear space, so that we're really being careful and intentional about, just even the things that come out of our own mouth about who we are, and choosing wisely, choosing the things that actually bring us back to the miraculous things about us, because every single one of us is miraculous in our own ways.
I love what you said about that negativity bias. It's kind of liberating to know that that's there, and it's really not going to go away. And if we can get curious about it and notice it, and just and not beat ourselves up for it happening again, and you're like, why am I doing this again? And like, I'm finding more and more that stepping into curiosity is the key.
Yeah.
Yvonne, I just have something to just pop in on that, which is that I totally agree with you, this curiosity. And with working with clients, with myself, what I've always found is, with Laura speaking about listening to these words, what are we saying? That I always sort of regard them as a flag of, when I overhear myself, you're kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe I just said that. That's insane. But then actually letting go of judgment and going inside to say, okay, because I do a lot of work with inner parts with people. And so to be asking, well, who's showing up? Who's here? Who's not feeling okay? Meaning younger Rachels, or with younger clients, as in themselves. And really just asking for, well, what do you want? What is it? What's going on? How are you feeling? How can I support you? How can I help you? And I have truly found that so much transformation comes through working with those inner selves, whether someone's been traumatized or not. They could have had a pretty regular life, but we all have moments and things. And so that's I treat words, as I say, as a way to go, well, that's interesting, as you say, curiosity, Yvonne. Let's go and explore that. Let's find out who's got something to say inside.
Yeah, I love that. And for me as well, in terms of wording and curiosity, I think one of the things that really marks midlife is this I work a lot with my clients around redefining success. And in that process, we're often talking about what is failure. You know, what are these crushing feelings of failure or, you know, not being enough? And that word, I failed, I messed up, or I'm not meeting my own expectation, you know, that you're starting to get curious around that. There's so much transformation available to you when you do that, going from, you know, taking risks as being a positive thing, failure as a very positive thing, and as a strength, as a reflection of your strength, not a weakness. I think that so much changes from there, you know, whether, in whatever context, or in all contexts, work and life and everything else.
And I think along those lines about playfulness or a purpose, I think we also need to bring in joy. I think we, as we just all said, we focus so much on the negative. I love to say, like, let's put that back and let's focus on something positive. How can we add something positive into your lives? And I gave once a talk about appreciative inquiry, and somebody says, what if somebody's dying? And I was like, oh my God, what kind of answer do I give? But I said, in those moments, you're together with the family, you're accompanying that person who's moving on, and that gives strength to others, and it can be also joyful, even in a sad moment. So I think we also have to train ourselves, even if there's a sad moment, a difficult moment, that we try to shift the needle a little bit into the more positive. At least that's what I see for myself, and creating your voice and not be afraid to say it, because sometimes we're like, I should have said it. Well, it's too late. So say it when you have that intuition to say something.
Yeah. Now, how does this equate to self-acceptance and self-love and learning to embrace the parts of yourself that you may have stepped away from during the course of getting to midlife?
Well, I'll jump in. I feel like the key really is the self-acceptance piece. You know, I think we're all wired for belonging. We all want to belong. We all want to feel like we're a member of some group. And when we start to have that inner confidence and that self-acceptance, the kinds of connections that we create transform. And so there's a very different relationship. You know, who you are when you're showing up is very, very different. And you're no longer, so you're, you know, like you said, like this theme of that you've come up with here, Donna, it's you're belonging to yourself before you're seeking.
Before, yes. Yeah.
And
do you
I
have
think
a personal experience? Do you have a personal experience of it happening to you?
Absolutely. Yes. I think, like Rachel, I've also had to do some really deep trauma work to recover some of the parts of myself that I was very disconnected from to function, high performance, but really cutting off from a lot of things. Once I had come through that and was able to have that self-acceptance and that self-compassion, I think that there's an ability to be vulnerable and open with people without wanting anything back in return, right? You're like, here I am. How can I be here for you? It's not, here I am. How can you accept me? You know, there's a huge difference, I think. And so I've had, from feeling very awkward and very shy and very judgmental to, really leaning into my naturally extroverted self and able to connect with so many people in a way that's way more meaningful to me now.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Yvonne?
I think it's an ongoing thing. It is not a one and done thing. And it is you're never going to get there kind of proposition.
Yeah.
But there's so much available in the trying, and there's so much there. I'm getting a little bit of feedback. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I had a lot of trash talk going on in my 40s, and some of it, not all of it, some of it was past trauma for sure. Some of it was just the idea that I was getting older, that I was looking in the mirror and not recognizing who, it didn't match up with who I thought I was when I look in the mirror. And I felt like things, it was all over and it was too late for me. And I felt like a failure. And that was a bunch of trash talk that was just rumbling and rumbling and rumbling, and starting to notice that trash talk for what it was, which was a story, helped me to be able to realize that it really is just a story, that my interpretation of everything that's ever happened to me in my life is a story. The thing happened, but how I perceive its value in my life is up to me. There are certain things that have happened in my life that have actually made me really good at things like conflict management. I am very good at calming down a situation because of high intensity situations that I've been in my life. So when I could take those things that felt traumatic and go, oh, but look how it served me, I was able to change my story and start to own it.
So flip the trash talk
Yes.
into positive affirmations.
And knowing that it isn't one and done, and that work is always going to be there to be done, and that I don't have to beat myself up for feeling bad, which makes me feel worse. That is very freeing.
Yes, it is.
I think, so, as I listen, and think about coming back to ourselves and belonging to ourselves, one of the things that's been the greatest practice, I think, of my life, and the hardest is to tap into the truth of how I feel. And, and for me, my path to freedom and connection back to self has been to find the way to be honest with myself about how I feel and what I want, and then to speak it, to make choices in my life around that. Both parts being super hard, right? Like I have found myself in lots of places and spaces and relationships and experiences that actually don't feel good for me, that did not feel good. And for a long time stayed in those things, right? Overstayed my welcome in those places and spaces, not because I didn't really deep down know the truth that those didn't feel good, but it was very, very hard to speak that truth to myself, and even harder than to speak it outwards and to say, this is how I feel, this is what I want, this is what I don't want, and this is the choice that I'm going to make now. And that's a practice, right? Truth speaking, truth telling is a practice. And, and I found for myself, and I have found from most every woman I've ever spoken to, that it happens so slowly over the course of time that you don't even see it happening, right? We're disconnected from who we are so slowly. It starts so young. And then all of a sudden, I work with women who have moments in their life who are like, how did I get here? Like, I don't even know how I got here. Well, it did happen so slowly, sometimes not so slowly, but often very slowly over the course of time, till you've forgotten who you really are. And that's part of, knowing that when we speak our truth, there are things that we may have to let go of, or that we will lose. And, and those are they're very real situations, right? And so, yeah, I think coming back to ourselves is also being honest with ourselves and honoring our truth.
Following on from Laura, you've made me think of something. about myself, which is that I was very dissociated from my feelings because of my traumatic background. And I genuinely didn't know how I felt. I couldn't really describe emotions. Of course, I knew if something felt bad or good, but I just didn't have that emotional maturity at all. And that I found that was my coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Feel things. That's how I survived through
Survival, right?
young years and my teenage years. And in fact, well into my 20s, it was in my 30s when I began Pilates teacher training, moved from like engineering hydrology into Pilates teacher training after I had brought up my kids for a bit. And I remember sitting in the room, in that training room, the first day of training, and as a woman with 2 degrees, I have a master's in engineering hydrology, and like to say, smart woman, sat in this room, and they're slowly going around the room asking you to introduce yourself. And it got closer and closer to me, and I turned bright red, blushed like crazy. And I just said, I'm Rachel, and I'm a stay-at-home mum, was literally all I could get out of my mouth. And my inner self was so shocked, because it was like, what has happened to me? Absolutely unbelievable, which was such a turning point in my life that that was really the point at which I began to evolve into Rachel, who is in discussion here today. So rather than following the ideas of what I thought I should do, like the engineering, the science stuff, well, I'm good at it, I can do it, but it didn't feel good. And then in years to come, embracing energy healing and coaching and NLP and hypnosis and all the things I do. I'm an artist, I paint and things. And it turns out Rachel's a really creative being, and I had no idea. I was totally squashing all of that. Yeah. And I think that I've learned, well, not learned, it's just sort of happened really, where I then began to be able to really access all of those feelings that were there, and notice that, you know what, in a situation, I'm noticing I'm people pleasing. That was my strategy. So that was huge to sort of like, I was sort of checking, how do I feel about this? Rather than just saying yes to something, because I feel that's what they want from me. It's been part of my ongoing journey to have those boundaries, to know, check in, how am I feeling? And to respond from that place based on, I'm just not all right with this. And it's okay if they don't like it. It's my ongoing learning.
Yeah.
I was wondering when the word boundaries was going to come up in this conversation. Because I think it's a huge part of it. And it is an ongoing challenge for me as a people pleaser to set boundaries and keep them in place and not feel bad about it. And getting better at it, but I'm still learning.
Well, that kind of leads to my next question, is like, how do you keep it going, since we were all experiencing that this is an ongoing thing? So what are those things that you put in place in your life, in your day, in your physical being, that remind you like, oh, wait, I don't have to go there anymore. I could stay where I want to be. So what are the things that you do? I think that would be an interesting conversation.
I think for me, it started when I lost my job at the Fortune 50 company. And then you have to survive it. You have to think like, what do I need? And I have to say, I was alone in New York. I didn't have a family, so I had to make it happen. Obviously, the running, when you introduced me, so I've ran 26 marathon races. The running, the discipline, the endurance has helped me to get to where I am today, and also to say no. And this is still very hard. But also to say no and not give an explanation. I think that's something that I'm still practicing. It's not so easy, but hopefully I'll get there.
For me, it's really leaning into I'm just totally an energy person. So for me, if I'm noticing I'm not feeling good about something, I lean into it instead of trying to reframe it or make myself think of something happy and jolly. For me, I have experienced that the doorway into freedom and transformation is actually leaning into what you really want to avoid, and just being with it, just accepting it, not trying to change it, just going, okay, this is here. This person's asked me to do something, and I'm noticing I'm wanting to jump in and go yes when I really want to go, really don't want to do that. And taking a pause, I think, is the other thing I'm learning to do more and more, is not give an automatic response, have a bit of a pause. And it's learning to say, you know what, I'll get back to you. That's huge for me. because I kind of want to go, oh, it's not okay to say that. But when I give myself that space, and then I can really check in, because I notice that in the moment when somebody asks me something, and I know I don't like it, I still feel like I have to automatically respond. And so that urge is still there. So I think when we enter into the energy of whatever that thing is, our response to it, and we just don't move, we don't act, we take our time until we're ready to then say what we want to do, whether it's a yes or a no. That's my ongoing practice, daily practice.
Yeah, I think that's so key, Rachel. And I think really feeling your feelings is absolutely such a big, so much information there, right? That when we tap into it again, it's so helpful. But I'd add to that in terms of as our external circumstances change and different demands keep coming up, I think one of the ways that we can really ground ourselves in the things that matter to us is and sort of remain steady, so that we know how to, we can respond from a place of strength. Is really creating that internal sense of security from being in touch with how we feel, and also really grounding yourself in what, in your values, in your beliefs, and not letting other people sort of sway that and be like, oh, now I've got to go and get on that bandwagon because that's what they want, And I think that's having taken the time to really root into that really helps you align what you say to people and what you commit to with what truly matters. I feel that.
I think for me, it's a commitment to the truth, right? And that has lots of layers. So I recommit every day to staying in and speaking my truth from a place of love and humility, not from a place of, I think we often think that no has to be loud and have force, when it can be quiet and it can be kind, and it has the same power. And so I think for me, being able to, committing to myself to speak my truth and detach from what the outcome is of that I know I've gotten to this point in my life. I've lived a lot of decades and I've survived them. And, and I think we are all far more resilient than we can possibly imagine. And so whatever the outcome of that truth will be, I trust myself, and I practice trusting in something bigger than me that's going to allow things to unfold as they're meant to. But I also feel like speaking my truth is the greatest gift I can give myself. And I really believe this. I believe that however it's received, it's an invitation for others to do the same. I have found over and over in my life that when I have had to speak my truth, which can look like a boundary, it can look like any number of things, that regardless of the reaction or response from the other person, it's also a very strong signal that they too can hold, can speak their truth and hold their boundary. And they may not like it, that's okay. But the peace that comes from it is and the freedom is so, incredibly, just the overwhelming liberation is well worth it. Any potential outcome.
Okay, can we kind of spin off on that?
Sure.
What has happened in your life as a result of loving yourself, of feeling like that you belong to yourself, that would have never happened if you didn't make the commitment and that daily recommitment to care for yourself above and beyond everything else?
I got back on my roller skates, Donna.
You all really have to go see her videos.
After 40 years, I realized a few years ago how much I was missing being on my roller skates. And, I decided to celebrate a win by getting myself a new pair of roller skates a little over a year and a half ago, maybe somewhere in that zone. And I expected to get back on my skates and just skate like I had when I was 10. And I had no idea how afraid I was going to be standing on those skates and how wobbly I was going to be, and that I'm a different person. I'm a more fearful person. And but doing it has been a challenge. I took it slow, and I do still get the same feeling that I had when I was a kid, which is this feeling of flying when I'm on my skates. And now I'm learning how to roller dance. So I'm learning how to go on a toe and a wheel, and then a toe and a wheel, and I do drills, and I'm finding all this is tied to core strength and balance. And yes, I've fallen, and I took a really good tumble and hurt my shoulder. Everybody's like, you'll break your hip, but I wear pads, I wear a helmet. Couldn't save the shoulder for that one, but I go to physical therapy, I'm taking care of it, and I'm back on my skates, and I don't regret it. It is something that makes me feel good. And if I can do it as often as I can, I do. If the weather's allowing and my schedule allows, I'll wedge it into my schedule to make it happen, because I know that it's going to give me more focus and energy and more to come back with to create podcast episodes, write articles, do the things that I need to do with some clarity, and come at it from feeling full instead of feeling empty and overwhelmed.
Yvonne, I love watching your videos on Instagram. I will tell you, every single time I see you skating around with just beaming with joy.
It's amazing.
So
I do skate around with a big smile on my face. I'm the only woman of a certain age at our skate park. I will say that. I met a little 9-year-old girl, and she was there on rollerblades, and she was like, I don't know any other adults who skate. And I said, now you do. And we ended up skating together that day, and she was excited to see a girl and to see somebody who wasn't on a skateboard. And she was fearless and amazing, and it was great to connect with this 9-year-old girl that day. But yeah,
I think this is cool.
Oh, go ahead. Go.
I just want to say, as a runner, this is my time to myself. And yesterday I went for a run. I was really tired, and I came back and I was so energized, and I was like on top of everything. So we know that research says if you work out actually in the morning, that the decision making is better, you're more active, you're not present, all the good stuff. So I always say, you don't want to be around me when I cannot run. So I, in a way, need to schedule my schedule around my running. And I'm very close to 500 miles for this year. So I want to say it because I have a few more miles left, and I want to commit to my goal.
It's amazing. It is. Donna, I was going to say, you asked about something I always think is really important is, especially in the work that I think we all do, is that the choices that you make to come back to yourself, they're hard. I don't sugarcoat anything. The outcome is amazing. The process is really hard. So when I think back, times where, I've spoken my truth, even when my voice is shook or shaken, was shaking. It led to divorce, right? It led to big seismic life changes and things that were very hard and unsettling, and never would be where I am in the life that I love more than anything else without those experiences, right? Like I let go of homes and all of my possessions and friendships. And even, when I reached a moment of, and I know so many people are thinking about this You know, I chose to let go of alcohol. I chose a sober lifestyle a number of years ago, and you know, and it wasn't for recovery, right? It was a choice. It was a choice, and that choice had some wonderful things come out of it, and was super hard. And I lost friends, and it impacted dating at the time. And you know, so all of these things, you know, I have, you know, deep compassion for all of us and everyone that may be listening, that coming back to ourselves and choosing things that are self-care or self-love or self-acceptance lead to incredible outcomes. And in the moment, they're hard. They're really hard in ways that we can predict, and frankly, in ways that we can't. And I think that's why we're not meant to do it alone. Right. I think that's at the core of why I do what I do, is that I don't think we're meant to do it alone. And you can trace beautiful outcomes to things that happened long ago, choices that were self-care and self-loving at the time. They didn't feel it though. Always.
We need Kim right now.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I watched a lot of that journey, Laura, and
I know.
I've been with you when you were crying, when you were laughing, when you were smiling, when you were pulling your hair out. It's hard. It's very
It's hard work. All of this is hard, really, really hard work. And yet it works.
Well, it's worth it.
It is worth it.
It's worth it because it's something that we can do for ourselves that nobody else can do for us. And when that's staking a claim. That's staking a claim in your own self-worth, that nothing else is more important than making sure that you're well cared for. And
You know, something, oh, I'm sorry, Donna, go ahead.
when you do stake that claim, what happens is the people that are there to take advantage of you, to feed into your trauma, to feed into the things that are going to break you down, they kind of go away.
Yeah.
And the right people show up.
100% agree.
Yvonne?
Sorry.
When Laura was talking about how hard it is hard. It is hard. But I also think that the hardest part of it is the start, the decision to do something. When I've made big life changes that were scary, it was the deciding to do it that was hard. It was the liminal space of being on the threshold. And then once I made the decision to do certain things, like moving to New York City with no job and no place to live, with some savings, but I knew one person in the city, that was it. And that was a huge decision, and making that decision was so scary. And everything fell into place once I started that ball rolling. Starting my podcast took me 2 years to do, because it was just an idea in my head that I kept telling myself I didn't have time for, and I didn't know how to do it, and who am I to do this thing, and any number of things. But once I decided to do it, everything cleared the way, and those little baby steps that I needed turns out they were enough to make everything fall into place. It's incredible. Every single time I found that to be the case.
Rachel, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, soaking in everyone's conversations and loving this. I think that for me, in terms of where loving myself led me to, was writing my book, which has been about 2.5 years in the creation, and has been truly the hardest, most challenging thing I've ever done. because it's been dipping into my childhood things, but moving through my whole healing journey. It's an inspirational guide, but helping people who are also moving through healing from very difficult childhoods. And I think the decision to actually write that, it took a long time to get the courage up to allow myself to be that vulnerable. Because within it, I'm being totally honest about what I'm sharing, because I don't think anybody benefits if I hold back. And actually the catalyst was my dad dying about 2 years ago. And when he died, I felt just a few months after, there was this huge motivation to get going with writing my book. Like, it's time, because I know I would never have written it when he was alive. It needed him to be dead. And so his death in lots of ways was a gift. That might sound strange to people, but that was one of the gifts, because it genuinely propelled forwards. And that through this self-love, loving myself enough, having done enough healing to the point where I was able to write this book, not from a troubled place or a traumatized place, but from a place of openness and acceptance and compassion and self-love. That then, because of my journey, I'm then able to help other people. So my self-love, I'm passing it forward to others, to be that support to others.
I think there's also a piece that's, and I recently wrote about this because it comes up all the time, is women are so hesitant to invest in themselves. And it's, we will pour into others in every way, time, energy, attention, resources. We will pour into others. And then when it comes to ourselves, it can be excruciating, right? It's like, and it Donna, you know the story that way back in 2019, I made the decision to go on a retreat, and I hadn't really ever done anything like that, but I knew something wasn't right. And I think we often know something's not right in our life, but we often don't know what the hell it is. Like, what is the thing that's not right? And I did a lot of work with women going through divorce for many, many, many years. And it's very easy to say it's the marriage, it's the thing, it's the this, and something often it's actually not. It's us. It's stuff going on. And so I had found a retreat that I wanted to go on, and you would have thought that I was making the largest decision of my life, like literally a life and death decision. It was that excruciating to make that decision. And I finally made it, like crying and weeping. And I ended up flying to one of the most beautiful places in the world, right, to Baja. And I was standing on the most gorgeous beach watching whales play in a place where I was about, and I was weeping. And all I could say is, oh my God, what did I do? How did I get here? I trying to grab onto the ROI. What was I going to get out of this? Change how I measure success of this thing. And it's painful to invest in ourselves. And it was the greatest thing. It was the beginning of massive transformation for myself. But I just think on small scales and large, we torture ourselves in making decisions because we're so used to, we invest in a new handbag. You see the handbag, you can show the handbag, and you know what you're getting, and la 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 la. And instead of trusting that when we invest in our souls and our spirits and ourselves, the ROI is immeasurable to who we become and what we can create.
I remember, Laura, when I was back before I did my Pilates teacher training, when I was in a place of very low confidence and low esteem, I talked about this Pilates training. I bored my friend senseless for about 2 years talking about, I think I might do this training. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll do it. And me going, wait. And it was one day one of my really good friends said, for God's sake, Rachel, either do it or shut up about it. which was the like, oh, okay. And I'm like, right, I'm going to do it. So it was the absolute catalyst to me to stop, you know, wandering around this thing that I really wanted to do. It made me get on with it. And the other quick thing I wanted to say was that when I was doing my NLP training, neuro-linguistic programming, it was in my 40th year, I'd done the prac level and the master prac level, and it was the trainer's training level, and it was being held in either Vegas or in Sydney, Australia. I'd never been to Australia. I'm like, oh, I like the sound of that. And so I thought, I'm going to go to Australia. And so I went off. It was a whole month in Australia. I had kids that were 10 and 12. I flew in my mum. I got my husband helping out. And I basically sorted out my life so I could go to Sydney to spend a whole month focusing on this training course. And my friends, I was living in Jersey at the time, New Jersey, and my friends were just in awe of me. They were like, you're doing what? They were like, you can't do that. Like, you're abandoning your kids, your responsibilities. And I'm like, oh, I'm doing it. And when I came back, that was one of the most empowering experiences of my life. It was an amazing thing to go through. The transformation was just sublime. And I came back and it really inspired so many of the women who I then met. Like, well, wow, she can do that. And people were signing up for yoga trainings and all sorts of things. It was a catalyst for other people that I met.
That is so true. When we give ourselves permission to blossom, to play, to be joyful, to get back to really be ourselves, we give that permission to the people who are watching us. And most importantly to me, I'm giving that permission to my kids. So instead of it feeling like a selfish thing, which so many, I think we all struggle with this of like, oh, is this selfish what I'm doing? No, it is not a selfish act. It is an act of self-love, which radiates out into the world and gives an example to other people to be able to love themselves that same way.
Mm-hmm. And I think you also inspire others. So many times I hear you inspired me. So maybe I'm more of a risk taker. I always say yes before I think, which might not always be the best thing. But then I'm like, oh, we'll figure it out. So I'm not a very good person when it comes to IKEA. Some assembly required. I'm not that. I buy it. Then I ask for help, maybe somebody. But in a way, I've traveled the world and people say, because of you, I did this. And I was like, this is the best reward I get. So I'm proud to take that step and maybe take that risk. And Rachel, congratulations to you to go to Sydney. I think we should do more things like that. And because it's possible, we look at the word, going back to looking at the words, impossible means I am possible.
Beautiful. Okay, so now we have about 10 minutes left. I have one last question, and then we'll round up. How does this show up in your work?
I'll tell you how it shows up in my work. I'm jumping in. It shows up in my work because I talk about reinvention. I talk about living playfully at any age, and by God, I better live it. If I'm not walking the walk and I'm just spouting stuff, what good does that do anybody? What good does that do me? Everything that I'm doing right now is an exploration. I don't know where it's all heading. It's an exploration. And I think that's the beauty of being our age, is this time when we have our wits about us. We have, we have the health we have that can allow us to do something new and exciting. And that's how it shows up in my work, that I want to inspire other people to get back to themselves and see where they go from there, and do it with curiosity and some excitement, and know that it's not all over. It's not all downhill from here, that anything is possible from here. It's about deciding and taking baby steps. And the hardest part is the starting. I hope that answers how it shows up in my work. Anyway.
I think it does.
I think it's doing something different. So we hear many times about leadership, thought leadership, charismatic leadership. All you can Google it. So I started lipstick leadership. I always have the lipstick on, even in a Zoom call. Why not? And people are laughing at it. I'm like, okay, maybe in a few years you come back to me. I think for me, it's taking that big next step and showing it, daring it. And also, I never wear black. So I always wear colors, to show up in colors and to tell the people that it is okay. If you look at Iris Apfel, she was 102. She was very glamorous, flamboyant, and everybody loved her. Why? Because she was different. So I think that's how I want to show up. But I also want to take others with me on that journey. So I want to create something fun, joyful, purposeful, and to take others with me. That's kind of like my purpose. And I'm taking those steps. It's not always easy, but I'm doing it.
I think for me, it shows up. I think often designing lives we love feels like for many people that that's for someone else. That's not for me. Like the others can do that, but and I think I really, I always say, I'm just like anyone else. I'm no different. And so it's, it's a daily practice to be that which I want to walk shoulder to shoulder with other women around, to continue to do that. And part of it for me, I think, is very much holding the tension and the balance of what is very real for people, right? None of this but if you believed in yourself more, then la, 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 la. And I've been told that years ago by coaches, but rather to hold the reality of someone's experience, but also hold the possibility of how we can reimagine things. And that tension, I think, is always there. For me, it's always about what's happening in my life, my very real life with a partner and kids and aging parents and all of the realities, but not losing sight of what is possible. And that sometimes is a hard balance and tension to hold. But I think that's how we create what we want.
Yeah, I love that intention to hold. Rachel?
Yeah, intention to hold. Interesting. That to me is, I think, holding the space of people. So I'm sort of, I really agree with you. I think one of the things that's come through developing my own sense of self-love and belonging to my inner self instead of an outward focus is really being able to hold a non-judgmental, compassionate, loving space for the people who I come into contact with, whether they are clients or whether I meet them in Trader Joe's. So for me, it kind of goes beyond just the work realm. It goes out into how I show up in the world, not just because someone's paying me. And I really feel like I'm on a bit of a love mission, I'm all about spreading love in the world and spreading a bit of joy. I truly am. When I see somebody who looks like they're having a really crap day, I have this like a sort of image of like a love bomb, like a bath bomb, that I just sort of pop in their heads and just kind of just send them some love and sending them on their way and giving people a smile, looking somebody in the eyes. And so for me, it's a way of life. And I think it goes way, way beyond the work side for me. But, and I just think it's such a gift to have traveled a difficult life, if you like, to this point, because those difficulties created these incredible gems that I would not be able to connect with people and support them in their own transformation if I hadn't have had the life that I'd had. So yeah, it's just all part of who I am, really.
I just want to pop in and say I love that idea of throwing love bombs out to people. I do it when I'm driving sometimes. I'll literally look at the cars that are passing by me and I'll think, you get a blessing and you get a blessing and you get a blessing. I'm Oprah giving blessings out to whoever's on the road, because you know that they're in the middle of what their life is, and they're just trying to get where they gotta go. And,
and I drive with invisible bricks. I have some work to do, clearly.
Oh, there are those days. Don't get me wrong.
Nathalie, has it show up in your work?
I think very much, you know, in all the ways that everyone's mentioned, but like Rachel just said, I think it goes way beyond the work. It's a way of life. And that the way that it shows up in my work is this, I think when we show up willing to share our story and our challenges, we invite trust in people. We encourage creative thinking in a different way. We create safe space, like you said. And I think that creates these very deep and meaningful relationships with my clients, as well as in all my friendships. And I think one of the ways that it shows up in terms of, you know, coaching is this ability to just embrace imperfection, right? It's like you're allowed to just be you, and being imperfect is not just okay. It's beautiful, and that's how we create belonging. Because then it's like, of course, you're welcome here, just as you are. There's nothing to fix, like we said at the earlier part of the conversation. You are more than welcome here.
Yeah, love it. Okay, so we've got just a few minutes left. And the way that I love to end all of these interviews and panels is by asking everybody to provide a wisdom bomb, just something small and actionable that people could take with them and, you know, and have a better day. Who wants to start?
I can start.
Oh,
Rachel.
I think I just nipped in there. Okay, so for me, that was something I just really want to repeat, something that I said earlier, which is, for me, my golden nugget is to encourage people to lean into the shit stuff that they want to most avoid, but keep breathing. And as you do that, keep breathing deeply and let go of the story around whatever it is. Keep breathing and keep opening and meeting everything, for us to all stop avoiding the hard stuff and just meet it with love and tenderness.
Love it.
I can go along that. It's taking one step at a time, one day at a time, one step in the right direction and in the forward direction. So we rarely go backwards. And especially as we end this year, let's move forward and find joy in all that we're doing. So one step at a time, one day at a time.
Excellent.
I love that.
I'm happy to go. I think it would be that it is never too late. Every day is an opportunity to begin again, make a new choice, try something new, shift something. Every day, it's the beautiful reality that time just keeps going forward, and so it is literally never too late.
Love it.
I'm going to double down on it's never too late. And I will say, Rachel, I found myself taking a deep breath when you were talking. Several, actually. Huge. And I would say, I would add on to that to stay curious. Stay curious about your current situation. Stay curious about who you are and where you're going. One of the best new practices I've taken on this year when I'm feeling anxious is to just start saying to myself, I am noticing there's a plant in front of me. I'm noticing the light is coming in through my windows right now. I'm noticing that I'm talking to all of you. And I just keep doing it. And it grounds me and plants me in a way that just opens up my awareness to where I actually am right now and helps me keep from doing all kinds of, it keeps me from worrying about the future and creating scenarios in my head that aren't actually real. They're just stories, worries, imaginary anxiety about what's going to happen. And if I just can ground myself into where I am right now, I realize I'm okay.
Nathalie?
So as an actionable step, I would add that one practice that can be incredibly helpful also is to create, consider having a special growth journal so that you can really track your progress as you move to get towards, tapping into your feelings, moving towards the things that deeply are meaningful to you. And this really helps reorient your focus towards the person that you're becoming as you do that, rather than always thinking about the results that you're creating and the results that you're producing in your life. Just really like tracking your internal growth, your creating a different type of goal for you to assess.
I love it. Thank you all so much for sharing your stories and your wisdom and your roller skating and your roller wisdom. This has been just a beautiful conversation. And please, everybody, connect with all of them. You can find them all on the real50over50.com website. And I know having these conversations, I'm coming up on the 100th interview next week, and this was our 14th panel. I'm a better person for it. And I'm so grateful to that every day. So please connect with everybody, keep commenting on this thread, share it with people that need to know it, and we will be back with more. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stella.
Thank you.